the Ignium Sparks podcast. Today I'm with Demetria Sloan. Demetria is an exec coach and a leadership coach, but above all, she's a connector. And we're going to ask her what that means in a minute. But I've worked and known of Demetria for a number of years now and seen some of the work she does around bringing leadership together and her Leadership Women's Day conference. So I'd love to talk about that at some stage. But in this conversation, we're going to talk about a number of issues and subjects around business and connecting people. So welcome, Demetria.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be with you.
Yeah, thank you. So tell me, this word connector, I love it. What does it mean to you?
Oh, wow. So it's really a few weeks ago that, well, probably a few months now. Time is just a concept, right? That I woke up one day and was like, oh, I'm a connector. Like I had this aha moment.
Yeah.
And then as I started having conversations with others, or even going back and looking at my strengths finder. So if anybody's ever done the Clifton Strengths Finder years ago, connectedness was one of my, that's that very book right there.
Holding up now.
Was one of my top 5.
Wow.
And the reason what came to me is that, and so you mentioned I do this women's conference, but it's also in the work that I do as a coach. I just started noticing all of the people who were now collaborating, partnering, working together. Yeah. And when you take those spokes, like if you're going back to the, from a wheel and you follow those spokes, it came back to one thing in the middle in the hub, and that was me. Yeah. And then I realized that, oh, I am the connector. I really bring people together in meaningful ways. So not really superficially. And I think that's partially because I'm not a superficial person. I do everything with meaning and purpose. And I noticed that so many people were connected through me. And so then I was thinking about myself as an NFL coach. So the National Football League here in the US, they talk about coaches like Tony Dungy or Bill Parcells, and they're part of the Bill Parcells line of coaches, or the Tony Dungy line, all the people who have been assistants that have come up through them, right? And that's what I started like, oh yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm connecting people, and they're going out and doing even more great things. So it's like the branches are just spreading.
I love that. And I love that thing about you being at the center and the branches spreading, because actually what that says to me is it's not about you. It's about all these other people, but you're the center that connects this together. And you used a phrase there, which I love, around doing things in meaningful ways. And I think so few people get that in terms of, you also use the word purpose, and we'll come back to that in a minute, but having a purpose which is around doing things in meaningful ways. So what does that mean for you in terms of the people you're connecting? What are the meaningful ways they go about doing things? Because that's, I think, fascinating.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've watching them connect in their businesses, and so create partnerships. And this just happened yesterday. I just happened to be on a little social media break, and I see a live video, and I see 2 people on this live video. Nice. One is a physician, another has recently got her nutrition, she's a nutrition coach certification, but she's she also does, she's a great vegan baker.
Okay.
And so, but she was talking about helping women of a certain age pivot into a plant-based lifestyle. And so that's how she and this doctor were having the conversation. And I was like, they met because of me. And so because of what the doctor is doing with her longevity practice, and then what the other is doing with her nutrition coaching and helping people pivot into that plant-based lifestyle, they've now come together and collaborated. So the doctor's clients are who she's taking on a journey for a more healthy lifestyle. She can partner them with the nutrition person who can help them. And then they're working together and helping even more women, right? So it's just like
Wow.
that's the meaning, that's the
Yeah.
meaningfulness behind it. And
Yeah.
they met and connected through me. And so when those folks come back to the middle and it's like, oh yeah. And so that's what's meaningful about it, is
Yeah.
that the work that they're doing, it- you can meet people at events and conferences or meetings, and it's very like, oh, okay, hi, how you doing? You take that business card or you get that number and it passes. It's a fleeting.
Mhm.
That's not meaningful.
Yeah, yeah, and it's actually that it almost links into that superficialness you mentioned about, you're doing
Yes.
things not superficially, but actually there's real value in giving that business card where people can see it and do something with it, and actually there's a connection being made for real
Yes.
people.
Yes. And so that's where the meaning comes in, is that I don't allow I don't generally involve hey, if we're not going to be in this together where we can grow and build together and help grow and build others together, then
Yeah,
you probably won't last in my circle long, because because that's just how we're wired.
yeah,
And I think it's a part of that attraction.
yeah.
You attract your tribe. So
And I love that in terms of that growing and building together. So there's a tribe that you've created, and I want to come on to this because you've created, from what I see, and obviously I'm here in the UK and I've met you through the world of coaching, but what I've seen of you in your world of the US, but actually you're really strong in this leadership for women.
mhm.
And I'm going to comment on something that listeners can't see, but behind Demetria at the moment is a beautiful mannequin dress, and there's a T-shirt on the dress which says I'm a boss. And I love that as a world, because I think there's something that says about that. And if you can see it, it's a pink, I about to say a skirt. Is that the right thing to call it? It's not a
Yeah.
skirt, yeah. And I'm awesome. And I think there's something there. So tell me about what that means to you as well, because I think that's really powerful.
Well, there's a saying or expression, say it with your chest, right? And so, when I created my merchandise to go along, just like with everybody, you got to have a t-shirt now, right? But I wanted my t-shirts to say things that
Yeah.
have meaning and have purpose. And so I sold them at my events, or if I go and am a featured speaker or vendor at another event, I had these things to sell. And so I have I'm a boss, I have phenomenal woman, that's me. Um, um,
Amazing.
you have to be odd to be number one. That's a Dr. Seuss saying. But those things have, again, back to having meaning, because sometimes I believe when you say things, I think wearable with clothing, wearable art, and all of those things, those where you can make a statement. Not only are you making statements to others, but sometimes you're making a statement to yourself. It's like you're wearing your affirmation.
Yeah,
And
I
so
love that.
that's what I'm a Boss is all about, especially for a lot of the women
Yeah,
who
yeah,
I work with as clients, or through my events, or when I ever speak to groups, is that affirming their leadership,
wow.
affirming that they are indeed a boss, the
Mm,
boss,
yeah, yeah,
um, in different areas of their lives, whether it's their career, or
yeah.
if they're an entrepreneur,
I think that's
any
fascinating.
any area. But yeah, it's partly, like I said, it's partly a statement to the world, but it's also an affirmation.
Mm. And I love that, about that affirmation about things. As a father of two daughters and a 15-year-old who is into her affirmations, and maybe that's come from me somewhere, about believing that you can do what you want in the world. You can
Mhm.
be who you want, which is hard when you've got a 15-year-old who believes she can be what she wants in the world. Because I want to challenge that, but also create a challenge in its own way. Um,
Well, I have a shirt with an Audra Lord quote. I'm deliberate and afraid of nothing, and I think that is a great for a 15 15-year-old to start believing that at 15, because then at 35, how she will move in the world will be deliberate and afraid of nothing. She'll be fearless.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we never have fear or
Mm.
trepidation, because of course you can't have courage without having fear. So, but she will be able to
Yeah.
walk through the fear.
Love that. And it's interesting because that's that yin and yang, that balancing between the two, the courage and the fear. You've got to know one. You can't know one without the other.
Exactly.
So tell me a bit about your coaching, because I think, as an exec coach, and I'm an exec coach as well, but we coach in different spheres. What is it you're seeing from people that enables you to say, okay, how do I help this person show up the way they can be? And, to take that quote, I'm deliberate and afraid of nothing. How do you help the people you're working with believe that for themselves?
I think the first thing is the reason I named my my business Vantage Point Coaching, right? I really believe if you can change your vantage point, you can change your life.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so I really work hard to help people just move 1 inch to the left. Now take a look. Let's go up a flight of stairs, and now let's look down on this situation.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, I love it. And
You know,
this is almost the coaching about just giving it distance, giving it space.
distance, space, movement, perspective. That's the in architecture or in engineering, perspective, right? But it's that's slight angle change really can change everything.
Yeah.
And so that's where the belief starts. And that's where
Yeah.
beliefs begin to shift when you change your vantage point, when you
Yeah.
look at things slightly differently. And it doesn't have to be in a very significant or major way. It can be really small, and those incremental things add up. And I have seen people just like, oh, because we get so stuck in our own view,
Yeah.
in our own stuff, and the way we've been conditioned, trained, taught, told to believe certain things. But I know without a doubt that our best answers are always brewing up inside of us. But we often I'm hitting my hands together, like you start conflicting against it because you're told that it has to be and do a certain different way. And there's always that internal conflict. And whenever there's internal conflict, there's opportunity to change the belief system.
Yeah, I love that. and it is interesting, isn't it? Because that internal conflict is because we've got a belief on one side that's built up from years of being a child growing up. And I often talk to people about, a lot of beliefs are instilled in you before the age of 7.
Yes.
Whatever the age is, that type of thing. And then this conflict I'm hearing from you is, comes about because someone else is saying, actually, it could be done differently. We could see it from a different view. And I love the bit you said about, just moving 1 inch to the left, whatever it might be, but seeing things from a different perspective. And it just takes 1 inch at a time.
1 inch at a time. Yeah.
Wow, that's powerful. And from my perspective as well, this view about, we're all humans and we all have unique abilities. And sometimes as coaches, we see people who don't believe in their abilities because they've had it drummed out of them as children or whatever it might be. So the bit I'm hearing there is, you're giving people this vantage point to see the world from a different view.
Yeah, and permission, permission to see things from a different view and experience them differently. Because all too often, like you said, things are drummed into us. We have this belief, and the conflict may be because we're being told something else, but sometimes the conflict is because our experiences don't validate the belief that was drummed into us. And so we know it's just not right, but we don't have the language, or we don't have the, as we said, the courage to then kind of do something about it.
Yeah, yeah. And it's hard, isn't it? Because this thing about it not being drummed into us. I think one of the things I see as a coach, Demetria, is people have never been exposed to a different way of thinking. Because if you're sat in that same mindset as everybody else has always been sat in, you don't see what the rest of the world can see sometimes.
Yeah.
So actually, we've got to bring as coaches that other perspective and hold up the mirror and say, this is what you're seeing.
Yeah.
Look what else is out there.
Right.
And some people don't get it. I don't know if you see that as well. They've never seen it from a different perspective.
Right.
Um,
Well, over time, they usually get it.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
that's one of the great things about coaching. It's over time. And hey, we are human, so we often fall back to habits, routines, rituals, traditions. We fall back easily into
Mm,
things that we know, because it's a lot, it takes a lot to really relearn,
yeah.
or unprogram things.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So one question I've got as well is, in terms of this, we talk about moving an inch and just building those inches up, and soon you're away from where you were. Um,
Mhm.
but it is very easy. And I was on a webinar this morning for a couple of salespeople, and we were talking there about differences. And they said, Phil, we've been on training courses before. And one of the big problems is we often come back to work and then we just get busy. And then by the end of the day, we've forgotten about the training course. We're on to the next thing. So I wonder, what have you seen that works in terms of just helping people stay committed to the change they're about to make? Because it's very easy to fall back as humans. We often do.
Yeah. So obviously, really getting them to commit to, I really believe in getting people to commit to an action,
Mm,
and then holding them accountable to that action and coming back to it. And again, do or do not. It's your choice.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah.
but frequency, frequent reminders, and so let me just state for the record, I do not hound people. Okay. I do not hound or spam people. However, I had someone say the other day, just like they can, they hear the voice in their head, their conscious speak, they also hear me in their head. So when they know, like, oh, she would ask me this question, and it's like, because
I
this
love
one
that.
client specifically, it's like, she's like, I can hear you saying, are you letting yourself off the hook right now? And then she's like, oh, that means I got to push through and do something. I got to go. The action has to take place.
I love
um
that.
so I don't know what it is about my personality or my voice.
But I just had this vision. You talked about merchandise earlier. I now have this vision of a little Demetria doll that you can sell to clients, which you can pull the string and it says, "Are you letting yourself off the hook now?"
Yeah, yeah. Hey, you might
That's
have
it.
something there.
I like the Demetria doll. Keep you on track. So you've got loads of experience. You've worked in a number of jobs and you've moved into coaching for many years now. And one thing I know about you wrote a great book, and it's all about the pearls of wisdom. And for listeners now, I'm looking at Demetria, and she's got a beautiful pearl necklace around her neck. And tell me about pearls of wisdom, because there's a lot of that coming out of you now. What does that mean for you?
Yeah, so the book is Pearls for the Journey, a guide to a more fulfilling life. And it basically is, 10 pearls of wisdom, um, to live by.
Wow. Yeah.
So the pearls, I mean, I love pearls. And I think it was, I think it was Jackie Kennedy who said, pearls are always appropriate, something like that.
Okay, nice. Yeah.
So you can wear pearls to jazz things up or take things down. Um, but you know, for me, the pearls for the journey,
Mm,
it started out as a presentation, and then I take this presentation and I adapted it and turned it into a book. And really, it's a labor of love. But as I talk about the formation of pearls in the book,
mm,
go through that.
yeah.
There are different type of pearls: natural pearls, there's cultured pearls, there's imitation pearls. And um I believe that we all are those natural pearls
Yeah. Yeah.
up here. It takes a long time of refinement and um being washed over and made over and over again.
Yeah.
And so I believe that we all are pearls, and
Yeah.
we all can use pearls to guide us, because a pearl is formed over time through, you know
Yeah, and I think that's interesting because I remember when I read the preface to your book, and it talks exactly that journey about what it takes to form a pearl.
Yeah.
And as I was reading it, I was thinking about the concept of forming a diamond under pressure and
Under pressure.
time.
Yeah.
And obviously a pearl's a natural thing, and I think that the bit you mentioned there is we're all pearls. We've all got pearls in us,
Mm-hmm.
but from that grain of sand
Mm-hmm.
forms that pearl at some stage. So I wonder, how does that land for the people you work with, and when they suddenly realize that they are a pearl that's been forming for a number of years.
Yeah, I mean, for some people, it lands very well right away because it's like, oh, it's that quick aha. For others, it's still a part of that refinement process. It's still those layers are being built up over them, or they're in the part of, like I said, with some pearls, you then they get buffed and shined and refined, right? And so it's that, okay, I got to remove some of those layers to shine you up so you can be in your most pristine state, right?
Yeah,
um
yeah,
but yeah, so these little tidbits, these pearls for the journey that I wrote in the book, for me, they're universal
yeah.
and they last a lifetime. Because you'll always have to be doing these things. You'll always have to be living in gratitude and having an attitude of gratitude.
Yeah.
You'll always have to be living that your health is your wealth. Like your health is
Oh,
truly your wealth. And then your wealth is your wealth, right? So it's like
yeah,
you have to make your money your business. Doesn't have to mean that you're a millionaire, billionaire, but the resources that you have, what are you doing with them?
yeah, yeah.
And how are you using them to affect your life and the life of those you love?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Sowing and reaping, that is, it's a biblical principle, and
Yeah,
it's in every major religion there is under the sun. If what we sow, we shall then reap. And so
yeah,
what are we sowing? Bringing a consciousness and an awareness to what are we sowing. and
yeah,
and
yeah,
in that sowing, you have to prepare the ground before. I mean, you just don't throw the seeds out there. You have to prepare the ground. You have to be patient. You have to tend to the land. You have to pull out the weeds, and you have to let go and let the natural process
yeah,
take its place. That's a universal principle. And so these pearls for the journey, because I often do feel that a lot of times we just overthink things and overcomplicate them.
yeah,
And so they're just 10 practical
yeah.
pearls of wisdom that can support you at any stage in life.
And there's a phrase you said there about, well, there's loads of phrases you said, which I love that, but that thing about sometimes we overthink things and overcomplicate things. Because I think there's a big thing around that is we get wrapped up in our head, and sometimes we need to let go of that and come down into our heart to understand what's really right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think from a business perspective, I talk to a lot of business owners or a lot of business people in the coaching world that I work with.
Mm-hmm.
And some people forget this human side of business,
Mm-hmm.
because actually we're all there, and all those 10 pearls actually are key to human development and business development, but actually it's the humans inside the business that make it work.
Well, I tell my clients, if you master life, you can master leadership, because you have to be good at life to be good at leadership,
Wow. Yeah, I love that.
because we're people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
At the end of the day, at the end of any business day, it's our humanity that matters most.
yeah, yeah,
And even in the book, I talk about it. Ever have at work, and you're working on a major project, and if someone calls and said, Phil, your daughter just was in an accident, what's going to happen? That major project, I'm done. I'm
yeah,
out of here,
yeah,
because my humanity comes first, and the love of
yeah,
my of my child or that loved one. You might think about it the next day or later, some hours, it might come back to you, but you're done.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so if we are attentive to the things in our life and our health and our family relationships, and if we're attentive to those things, then we can really be attentive and attuned to the people who we work with, because they're humans that show up every day to do that job.
I think that that's a really powerful thing, isn't it? And I think that thing about being paying attention to life, because you're right, at the end of the day, we're humans and they show up to do the job, but actually they're humans and we can work with them and connect better. And that thing about master life, master leadership, that's exactly what that is about, isn't it? Because
Hmm.
we over this last year of us all being locked down in different ways with the pandemic, we've all had to develop different ways of doing things. But the one big thing is, around the world, we've all been at home more.
Hmm.
We've all seen our kids, we've all been with our family. And I think there's a big thing there. We've had to master life again in a different way. Whereas
Hmm.
before, we've been going out the door at 8 o'clock and coming back at 5 o'clock, having been doing our job.
Hmm.
But actually, our job's been from home. So I
Hmm.
think a lot of people have had to master life again and probably got a lot more out of it. And I'm hoping there's more humanity comes out of this year. And I wondered if that's the connection, that people have been at home and they've seen the world in a different way.
I hope that we remember this, because I think in the rush, I think so many people struggled because they they realized this is not the life that I thought I
Yeah,
had, right? Because we get caught up in the trappings of the material things in which the job can afford us,
yeah, yeah,
whether it's private schools, um
yeah,
the beautiful trappings in our homes, and and so you take all that away and you're all in the room together, regardless of the size of your home, and and it's like, oh, wait a
yeah.
minute, okay, these are not the kids I thought I was raising, right? Or this is not the spouse that I thought I had, or I'm not the person who I thought I was.
Yeah. And that's a big thing, isn't it? When we suddenly reflect on it for ourselves.
Yes.
Powerful, powerful. And
Yeah.
it's interesting because I think this thing, we've been through this pandemic and we've still some way to go. But and people say, what's the upside of the pandemic? What's changed for us? And my belief is, hopefully, we're going to come out and we're going to look back on this and say that was a changing point
Hmm.
for something around us as humanity. We're yet to see it, but I do hope that that comes out of things.
That is my hope, that is my prayer, that the things that, having a deepening understanding and connection of ourselves, with our
Mm,
families, those people we love. Also, hey, I'm talking to you in the UK. I've had more conversations with people, and workshops globally, that the limitations of time and place,
yeah,
and while people have worked internationally for business all the time, there still is always limitations to travel and different things like that. A lot
yeah,
of those limitations are off. We can really connect with people in a much more meaningful way. I've just And even thinking about the takeoff of at the application like Clubhouse, for
yeah,
instance.
yeah. Big thing.
A lot of it is because people are able to connect with people
Yeah.
around the globe,
Mm,
um, and have conversations. So there have been some great things that have happened as a result of this time to pause,
yeah,
this time of introspection
yeah.
that the pandemic has forced. And so I hope that we hold on to those good
Mm,
things.
mm. And I have exactly the same view, and I think it's really interesting, that pause and introspection. And the bit that I come back to when you talked just now about your pearls, one of them was around gratitude and an attitude of gratefulness. And I think this is a really key thing, and we all talk about that, and I firmly believe it is. And I'm one who keeps a journal, and every day in my journal I write down 3 things I'm grateful for at the beginning of the day, because for me that really helps connect me to back to think about the things that were good.
Mhm,
And I, in the last year, have started my meetings now, and I say, okay, let's just have a round of positive news,
mhm,
personal and professional, because it just connects, because it's a world of turmoil for a lot of people. But
mhm,
just come back to the thing and say, okay, what's been good in the last 24 hours or the last week for you personally and professionally? And I've got to know people in a really different way because they've shared things with me, even small things, which they're grateful for. And I think, when you talk about that pause and introspection, that moment of let's have a positive news round actually just gives people a chance to be introspective about themselves and say, what has been good for me in the last 24 hours or the last week since we last met? And you know what? They always find something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I'm stealing that. I'm just writing myself a note down.
Yeah, that you can have that one. I love that.
I absolutely love that. And you're right. And so, I'm in the US here, and your listeners won't see me, but I'm an African American woman, or a woman of the African diaspora, Black woman, whatever label you want to use to
Yeah.
describe me. And so the experience right now has been tough here.
Yeah.
If you're watching any news coverage or seeing any news coverage, it's been a challenging time. And
Yeah.
so without gratitude, I don't know where I would be. Right, from a mental and emotional place,
Yeah.
because it is very easy to get sucked in to the turmoil and the strife and the challenges. So I love this. Really, I love that positive news round, thinking about doing when I do my workshops. Like, I definitely am adding that in.
Yeah.
What great icebreaker there is. Yeah, and then with all my clients, we're starting
Yeah,
off with.
you can. Yeah, I love it, and I'd love to know what you think of that, because I think it does work. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because as you say, I look at the world from the point of view of, we're all humans in this world together. And I was telling you just before we came on air, so to speak, about, I was running a workshop this morning, and one of the key learnings from one of the gentlemen who was on the course is he said, we're all different, and that's okay. And the point he was talking about is he's had one view of the world. He's seen it through his eyes. And I always use the phrase, the map is not the territory. For those who do NLP, understand where I'm coming from when I say that. But actually, we all see the world differently, but we're not being aware of and cognizant of it sometimes. And I think that the key thing about coaching that I've seen over the last 10 years of me doing it, and probably 5 years of me doing it really professionally, and that seems strange saying that, is the fact that actually, how do you nurture the talent of everybody in the room? And how do you pull out those differences and allow everybody to come together and contribute? Whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, whether you're an engineer like I am, or a really creative person, whether you're from a different country, whether from a different religion, actually, I think we've all got so much we can put into the pot and just make that work together. And it's only when we look at those things and say, okay, how do we work together using our differences? Actually, we can spark magic in that view, in my view, to make that. So tell me about, from your perspective, getting people to understand the unique abilities, because one thing you specialize in, let's come back to this point again, helping women step forwards. But women, that's a big collective audience. What are the key things people come to you with in the first place and say, Demetria, I need help with this? What's the flags you see from them that make them step up to say, I want to come and work with you?
Usually it's, they have something burning inside of them that they can't figure out how to get out, or they have found themselves stuck.
Yeah. Okay.
Whether it's stuck from their own actions, or a client I was speaking to yesterday is like, I'm on this track. I was supposed to be elevating up, and this is where I want to get to. And I didn't get there, and this is the first time I've not been able to get to that next rung. And right. I need to help figuring out what's happening here.
Yeah. Okay. So there's something that's blocking that person's ability to move forwards.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter whether you're in a corporate world or if it's in your personal life. Like, I want this, and I just can't see my way to it, or I've just been putting it off because I don't know what I don't know, and I'm afraid, or what have you, what it might look like. And it's just, again, it's just that inertia.
Yeah, inertia. And it's interesting because one of your pearls was around looking at the resources you have. And I wonder how that comes to play for a lot of the people you work with, because actually we all have resources at our disposal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
do you see that sometimes, that people ignore or overlook what they've really got inside already?
Ignore and overlook what they have inside, or just don't even see it as a resource,
Okay.
because there's so many things that we just, oh, well, that's just who I am, or that's just how I do that. No, actually, that's a talent.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's a skill, that's an ability. Everybody doesn't do that. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought they did. No, they don't. So, now how can we leverage that to our advantage, right? Or, taking a look around you. Oh, I didn't even think about, you talk about when people start mapping out all the connections that they have and who they know and what they do, then they're like, oh, right, pretty much everything you need is within less than 6 degrees of separation from you.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so now how do we formalize a plan around, in a meaningful, purposeful way? Okay, all right, I can do this, and these are the resources I need to help me. Now, let me put, these are the actions I'm going to commit to, and start again, that one step at a time forward
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
make it all happen.
And it's interesting because I think that's the power of you as a coach, and coaches worldwide. That's what we do, is they help people see that and hold up the mirror. But I love that piece that you're talking there about, recognizing that we've got all these talents, but sometimes we just overlook them because that's just how we've always done
Oh,
it.
yes.
We don't
Yeah.
recognize that, hey, that other person may not see
Yeah.
that we've got
Yeah.
it there.
Yeah.
And just moving on a bit, you talked there about 6 degrees of separation. So I think that circles back to your piece about being a
The
connector,
connector. Hmm.
putting people in touch and getting people to reflect on, actually, if you put these all things together, you build a great picture of a more powerful group of
Hmm.
people. There's more power
Absolutely.
there. So coming back to your pearls of wisdom, if you were to look at your 10 pearls and say, this is number one, can you rank them? Or is it just all of them matter the same? What would be if you had to pick one and say, this is the number one, which is the one you think is the most powerful?
So the number one, so 1 and 10 are what they're pretty close. So number one is attitude of gratitude,
Yeah,
right? That's number one. And then number 10 on here is enjoy the journey,
love it. Okay.
because that pearl is there because we get lost in the sauce, as they say. you know, we like I said, we overcomplicate, we get too focused on these arbitrary destinations, these arbitrary
Mm,
achievements, that it's and then we miss out on the fun of the journey. We miss out
yeah.
on the fun. We miss out on the messiness. Usually the messiest, silliest, scariest things are the things that when you reflect back on them 10, 20 years, those are the ones you're having the biggest laughs about, right?
Yeah, yeah,
um
yeah. Really good point.
but we miss it in that moment because we're just in a frenzy, about, oh,
All
got to
the
do
time.
this to get here, got to get here to get there, got to do this to get there. And it's like, man, stop all of that, because
Relax. Yeah.
relax, chill out, and enjoy. Like, oh man, this is a mess right now. Okay, let me take a deep breath and take it all in, and
Yeah.
let me get it together, right?
And to
Yeah.
me, that's that attitude of gratitude, isn't it?
Yeah.
Enjoying the journey and then reflecting on what you've been on. And even come back to this pandemic, looking back over this last year, it's been a hell of a time for the world. But
Hmm.
actually, there's some positive points. And we could all look at those positive points and say, that was a turning point for us. That's where we did things. That's where we
Hmm.
came together. That's where I made more time with my family, or whatever the words are. Actually, we've got all those things there. We have a sign in our house in one of the rooms, and it says, life is a journey, not a destination.
Hmm.
And to me, that's a key thing when I hear you say that there. We've got to be looking at what this journey is and just be part of it.
Hmm. And be a part of the journey, and stop trying to arrive, because the truth is, and I think it's a universal saying, but my father would say it all the time. You you don't stop learning or till the day you die, right? That's it. And so there's always this uncovering and this unfolding and this experience to have.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And that's the journey. That's the fun part.
yeah. I think that's really interesting. And this is spooky. I quoted that very same phrase this morning. I said, my grandmother used to tell me that all the time. That was
Yeah.
her phrase,
Yeah.
and yeah, when I think back to that, this thing about this fun part about it, we're continually learning. And there's lots of phrases around that. I work with an organization called Scaling Up, and Vern Harnish uses the phrase that, leaders are readers and readers are leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's about learning, and whether your style is reading or watching podcasts or listening to podcasts or watching YouTube, there's so many ways of learning. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people overlook that as that's their way to move forwards, and you've got to keep driving yourself and learning something to expand. Otherwise, you're just going to plateau, and
Right.
most times a plateau turns into a decline.
Yes.
Um, so,
Well, if you play, here's the thing, I and it may not be a literal decline, but when you plateau and everybody else is still going higher, it's a decline.
yeah, because if you're on the wrong track to the rest of the world,
Right.
that's lovely. So one thing you do is, we come back to this world of women in leadership. I know that you run your Spring into Leadership Women's Day conference. And to me, this is a great segue into learning, because you're bringing women together to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that, because that's, it's in the US, but hey, we're a global world these days, so it could be anywhere, I'm sure. But tell me more about what that means and what it's all about.
Absolutely. And it is an online experience again this year. Naturally, during the pandemic, we had to pivot online. Had no idea that was going to happen. And it's like, whew, talk about learning some things. But yeah, so Spring into Leadership, I started in 2017. Yeah, this is going to
Wow.
be the 5th conference. So my 5th annual conference. And I'm just so very excited and proud.
Wow.
I really started it as a proof of concept, an idea that I could bring a really high value conference experience at a price point that women um, could easily invest in themselves. A lot of times these really large conferences, these major events, I mean, you have to have a corporate sponsor, or your organization sends you, and they're usually great. You
Yeah.
go, it's pep rally time. You come away with some great swag bags and all of this stuff. But then, as you said earlier, you reference, the folks talking about training. Then they come
Mm.
back and get to work and get busy,
Yeah.
and it leaves. And so I wanted to create that same high value experience where you could easily invest in yourself, but it
Yeah.
wouldn't leave you. So it's based on 6 pillars.
Okay.
Every year we have leadership, obviously, is a topic. Um, our
Yeah.
self-care,
Okay.
our health,
Yeah.
our wealth,
Okay.
our career, and then entrepreneurship.
Wow.
So those are the 6 pillars and components that are always weaved into the Spring into Leadership Conference. And I'm very lucky to be connected to some absolutely phenomenal women of all ages, stripes, and stages. And I assemble those women to be my faculty, basically. They're the expert faculty. And so whether it's a keynote talk, a breakout session, or a panel discussion,
Mm.
they lead these conversations. And there has not been one year. I was just talking about it the other day with a couple folks who've been there since the beginning. There's not been one year that people have not had not just an aha moment, but that we've not walked away at the end, like literally in tears,
Wow.
because something so powerful has shifted. There's not been one time where someone has walked away like with an aha moment that really just completely shifted their life, whether that
Wow.
was like from a health perspective, from like really diving into their business. There's one young lady who I
Mm.
remember 2019, she stood in the corner, she came to the VIP experience, and she was in the back in the corner. And at the VIP, everyone gets to go around and everyone talks, and it's like we're having really meaningful connection.
Yeah.
And she was like, I need help, I am struggling. And and I have her speaking this year at the conference because 2 years later, she's taken that side hustle, it's become her main hustle. The
Wow,
job that was toxic and drowning her, um,
that's amazing.
she was fired from it. She was like, it was okay because she and I had already been talking and planning her exit. They didn't know that.
Oh,
And so
wow.
she, in 2019, she was like really at a very literally drowning from the toxicity of the
Mhm.
the pressure in the environment, and she was like, I'm about to break. And when she was released, it just released her. And she has been, and it's like she has grown her business so much in this year and a half. It's been amazing to
Wow.
watch.
Wow. I
It's
love
been
that.
amazing to watch. But that support network, that community, everybody was like, she was like, I need help. We got you.
Yeah.
And
Support network. Yeah.
it just absolutely and she's still, she's out there on her grind, but it's just amazing to see and to witness.
Yeah. I
And
love
other
that.
people need to know that that's possible for them.
Mm. And you know, this is interesting that word possible, because I think this comes back to one of the things we said earlier. Unless you know what's possible, have a vision of it, sometimes you don't know. You get stuck in your own rabbit
Yeah,
headlights. So for
absolutely.
that lady, an amazing journey, gone
And she
from
did all the stuff that we're told we have to do. So she went to school, got the degree, got the master's degree, was doing it, working in her profession, was doing, and it was boom, 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 boom. I'm miserable.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
you know, yeah, one of those situations, and that is a lot of people's story.
yeah. They just, I think a lot of people follow that. You know, the vision I had in mind there was Dorothy walking along the yellow brick road,
Hmm.
looking for the Emerald City at the end,
Hmm.
following the path. But actually, sometimes the path isn't the right place to be, because it's what's behind the curtain. It actually is different to you expecting it to be when you get there.
Exactly.
And I love that there. So for someone there who's come out the other side of she got fired, but the universe conspired to get her into the place that she had created that she would
Yes.
be in,
Yes.
and creating her own business doing it, and gone from side hustle to being main hustle.
Yes.
Lovely story. So 6 pillars: leadership, self-care, health, wealth, career, and entrepreneurship. They sound like they connect really well together. Um, what was the way you came up with that? Because obviously there's some great things in there. If you were to, again, hierarchy of those, which is at the base, which is the pyramid, how would you bounce that?
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of it is just from my own experience.
Mm-hmm.
As I experienced being in the professional world, and the things that I needed to support me along my journey and my
Yeah,
path. And
yeah, I love it.
leadership is the foundation,
Yeah.
because what I know for sure and what I've experienced in the course of my life is that women are natural leaders. We are natural born leaders. Now, from where
Mm-hmm.
we've been conditioned or told otherwise, um, but I was that kid on the playground organizing people. I was the girl who was like, "Come on, let's do this," or picking others up on in my a childhood friend reminded me of this story several years back, and I was
Yeah,
like, wow, I could barely remember it, but as she reminded me, I
yeah.
was like, yeah, I do remember that. She was like, remember I fell on the playground and I hurt my ankle and you picked me up and carried me to the office.
Wow.
And I was like, yeah, I do remember that. We're like second graders.
Ah,
So
that's
um
powerful. What a great metaphor in terms of the way you've married your life all the way
and
through it.
that is what this bringing the leadership is all about, and that's why leadership is at the foundation, because women are natural leaders. And why we're not in more leadership roles and positions, I think, is because having the health,
Yeah,
having the wealth, uh, having those really crucial conversations about career advancement and where we get stuck. Last year, one of the panel discussions I had in that career area, and that kind of sprang into the C-suite talk, I actually had a panel of men. This was the first time I had a panel of men
okay.
address a group of women about what are the conversations you're having about women, and when you're talking about your talent,
Wow.
and how to help women move up and navigate. And it's a total different conversation. The conversation that men have is a completely different conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of my VPs was very former VPs. He's in the coaching world now, but he also shared how, me, as I said, I'm a Black woman. I wear my hair naturally. And originally, when I started out with the organization, I didn't. But then when I, you know, transitioned to wearing my hair naturally, cut it, how my hair became a conversation in
Yeah.
those rooms. And I'm a sales leader. So how did my hair become a topic of, how was my hair even a part of the conversation?
That's
But those are conversations that really happen that then do hinder women,
yeah.
women of color.
Yeah. Yeah.
The client I was talking to yesterday, it's just like, I'm a native of a South American country, and I've worked globally, and I'm here in the US now, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to advance up to that next level. And, already at a VP position,
Mm,
but
mm.
now this next level, it's getting, it's just like, is it my language? So she's questioning all of these things. And it's like, we might need to start, we might, these, who are the persons in the room who are having conversations about you, who will be honest with you about the
Yeah.
conversations that are being had about you? And women need to
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
So that's all of those things are why Spring into Leadership was born,
Wow.
and how each year I tried to craft the agenda. So this
Okay.
year we have a panel um, of women who are in politics,
Okay.
because we
Wow, that's
need more
powerful.
women to step into politics, whether it's local. We have local, and then someone who also works with the U.S. House of
Okay.
Representatives. But at every level, we need more women, diverse groups of women involved in
Yeah.
politics.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is music to my ears as a father of two daughters,
Hmm.
because it's now's the time.
Hmm.
At the end of the day, allowing those girls to go on with that belief and come back to that point we said right at the beginning around one of the problems that people have initially is the beliefs they've got about themselves.
Hmm.
So actually, now's the time where you can create that agenda for people to say, actually, you're better than you think you are. You've got this ability. Go, go, go. It brings I'm sitting here with a tear in my eye as I say this now,
Hmm.
because it's really powerful that uh, people can step up and realize they've got that ability, whoever they are.
Hmm.
I think is a really great message to put out to young girls coming up, that they can do what they want to do. And
Hmm.
actually, talking about women in politics, actually women in industry stepping up to that point. And you talk about getting, a panel of men to talk about the leadership discussions they were having. They
Hmm.
need to make themselves pretty vulnerable to be out there to say, this is what's going on for us. This is
Hmm.
the conversation we were having, whether it's about someone's hair, come back to your point there, about hair,
Hmm.
about women. Actually, it takes a big thing to sit up there in front of a group of women and talk about those things.
Right. And that's why the next time I have an in-person conference, I'm bringing those men back together to
Wow.
because it is, these are the things we don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this year's theme is power. So POWHER. So it's a spin on the word power, but the POW is power of women. And
Love it.
so
Wow.
I believe that when women are empowered, they will empower other women. And so that's why it's all about the POW for me, the power of women.
Mm,
Um, but the conversations that we are not aware of that are happening, for those men to just shed a light.
yeah.
It was an aha moment for a lot of women. Now it was uncomfortable for some, like, well, why, because we were virtual that year, so we couldn't get them on, in person. But I know that in person, those conversations, but we talked about negotiating in contracts and culture fit and culture add and all of these types of things and conversations that happen when the majority of the people who are in those top executive seats are men. These are some of the things that they're talking about.
And that's
And
the thing.
man,
Yeah.
and if you're a woman and you don't know,
Yeah. Yeah.
It was very, very good exposure. But for your daughters, specifically, because I also have a teenage daughter,
Yeah.
um, uh, not just them knowing what they can do and what's possible for them, but also that, you know what? If this system is not serving me, let me create my own system. Let me connect. That's why the connections
Yeah.
are so very important.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the person I was talking about before who was in that toxic environment,
Yeah. Yeah.
finding the right connections, she's able to create her own environment and hire her own people and start building her own empire, because we have that capability as well. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and some of us are working inside these systems. So those who are still in politics or and still in their respective industry, working inside those systems. But how do I now show up in that system in a way where it's centered around my health first and the health of my people? Because we talked about up top, we're humans,
Yeah.
and we're humans showing up to do this work. We're not robots. So I'm gonna lead with my humanity. I'm gonna lead with your health in mind. I'm gonna lead with your emotional health in mind. I'm gonna lead with your mental health in mind.
Yeah.
I'm gonna lead with you creating wealth and abundance for your family in mind, and not this competitive thing where we're all trying to take each other down a peg.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so if women can come together and connect and grow in these meaningful ways, whether they are in industry, entrepreneurs, or what have you, at this thing, we'll all be in a better
Yeah.
place.
And the light bulb for me is, this is an amazing conference that men need to hear as well, because
Hmm.
actually we all need to lead with humanity. We all need to understand how we show up in the system,
Hmm.
because at the end of the day we're contributing to this, and we can move ourselves forward in this global way of doing things. And when we talk about businesses on purpose, actually you've got to engage the people. You've got
Hmm.
to engage the people at every level. And we talk about culture coming from the top down. Culture's bottom up as well. But
Hmm.
actually the men at the top, the women at the top, all need to have that view about how do we understand we're all humans. We're all in this
Hmm.
together, and
Yeah.
we will win and survive together, or we will fail.
Hmm.
And there's a big message there for me, and I love that. So your 6 pillars there, I think health and sitting at the center, and self-care, really, actually that's the foundation for me. Just hearing that, getting yourself right, but actually recognizing that we all need to have that as about ourselves as well.
Hmm.
That's
Absolutely.
um so Demetria, we've talked a long time here, and I love it. I've got one final question, and you may know the answer to this already, but you might have to think. You've done lots of learning. We talked about the spring into leadership. If you were to point to one book that you've read which you say, hey, this is a book that everyone can work on. I hold up StrengthsFinder because that just happens to be in my hand. But what's the thing you would say, go and read this, and it would just give you one light bulb moment? Could you name one book?
Ooh, one book.
Or one resource? Because it doesn't have to be a book even. It could be a resource.
Yeah, I would say one of the books that really kind of set me on this course, and this was before I had even left industry and started Vantage Point Coaching. It's called The Little Black Book of Success.
Okay.
Marcia Haygood is one of the authors, and I can't remember the other two ladies, but I remember Marcia because I actually got to meet her.
Wow.
And
I love that.
and it was for me as a Black woman in leadership, and it was just such a like, oh, I get
Wow.
it. And so even when I put together pros for the journey, that was part of what my in mind, like the fashioning, the style of having some practical stuff, having a place for you to come, some action plans and what have you.
Yeah.
But that was the one for me, because
Mm.
it was just so very powerful. Um, and especially they had a chapter on planning your exit strategy.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I have, in a lot of women who I have coached who have been at high levels in organizations, and they have found themselves like tapping out.
Yeah.
It's like, do you have an exit plan?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, because we've never been taught to have an exit plan. We've
Yeah.
always been taught to just keep going on, just
Yeah.
keep
Yeah.
going on, go higher, higher, higher. And it's like,
Yeah.
you
When's the
may have
right
tapped
time?
out. It may have tapped out just like, I don't want anymore. Like I'm done. Like,
Yeah.
I've achieved all the things I wanted to achieve and I'm good.
And that's
Um,
okay.
and that's okay. But if you're in a company and organization, you do these annual reviews and this stuff, and they're always talking about trying to go up more and next level in the promotion. And it's always about this movement. And sometimes it's like, I don't even want that anymore.
Yeah.
Right. If you don't want that anymore, let's plan on how do we move on.
Yeah. And actually being honest with yourself that actually reach the limit there now and go and do what's appropriate for you at that
For
stage.
you, yes.
Yeah. I love that. What a great bit of advice. Thank you. I should go and look that one up on Amazon and see what that looks like.
Yeah.
So Demetria, there's loads more questions I could ask you. We said we'd talk for an hour, and I think we've covered that easily. There's probably another conversation in here as well for another time if you're willing. I'd
I'm
love to find out
absolutely willing.
after you've done Spring into Leadership. I'd love to find out your review of that. Would be a great point to do. So just tell me, Spring into Leadership, where can people find details of that if it's appropriate?
Yeah, they can go to springintoleadership.com.
Okay, simple as that.
Simple as that.
And if they wanted to find you directly,
they can go to Vantage Point Coach, no ing on the end, just vantagepointcoach.com. That's the website. I'm going to be unveiling my revised, updated website here in a week. So we're working on that behind the scenes. And then I'm on all the social media platforms. So I'm on LinkedIn. I am on Instagram, on Facebook.
Lovely. People can find
I'm on Clubhouse now. I'm still just an observer on Clubhouse. I haven't started any rooms yet, but just an observer and a participant in other rooms right now. But I am there, so you can follow me there as well, and then maybe we can start a conversation.
Well, that's a good one. I've got a Clubhouse. I'm hosting an event next Wednesday, 11:45 UK time. So I shall tag you at that time. It'll be early in the morning, but we'll find another time when we can talk together at that stage. It'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Demetria, Sloan, it's been great. It's been a pleasure talking to you as usual. Loads of stuff there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.